netrootsradio.com.
Okay, Tuesday edition of the After Show. Got Wink and Justice with you. Wink over here on the East Coast.
And Justice over here on the West Coast of the contiguous United States of America. It is Red Sky at Morning Tuesdays, and that really means one thing. Somewhere in the world, there is a storm a-brewing.
Yeah.
Just like it's noon sometime, or somewhere as well. Hey, Wink, how are you doing?
Not bad, not bad. It is 63. That's pretty much going to be the high for the day. 67 really? A little bit earlier this morning. But
you got up to 70 somewhere yesterday,
Yeah, we got up to 72, 73 yesterday. Pretty nice day yesterday. It was, just kind of a hint, I guess you'd say, of spring. But the rest of the week is supposed to be like in the 50s, and we're headed toward there today. As we're just, it was like, say, it was 67 about an hour ago. Now it's 63, so we're heading downward. But it's still a halfway decent day out there. We'll take it, and it's much nicer than the 20s and 30s.
Oh, yes.
So we'll take it. We'll even take the 50s for crying out loud. So there you go. Mind you, get the chat. Just go to netrootsradio.com. Scroll down the bottom of the page, and on the right-hand side of the bottom of the page, there is a link to the chat. So click that. Join us there.
And we certainly apologize for being a broken record. I know you hear it all the time, not just from us, but everybody. And, resistance doesn't come cheap, unfortunately. Some people do it cheap, and we try not to do that. But there are the contribute, donate buttons to the leftish of the chat room link.
Yes.
And thank you for your generosity. We are still in a mini fund drive, and we'll let you know how things are proceeding. But thank you very much for that. Also, after show podcasts can be had. Yesterday we got it up on Podbean. The Podbean player got put up. So
yeah,
we went right past the raw data file into the perfected file.
Yes.
And so it can be had either by Spreaker or Podbean or Stitcher or iTunes or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
There you go.
If you choose to use the one that has like the little heart, use at your own risk.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah.
Just saying. All right. Well, here along the banks of the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, it is currently 40 degrees, projected high of 59 to 60. Now, we have a forecast, a 90% chance of precipitation. But as I look out here from the window at the Netroots Radio mothership, it is 100% raining right now, Wink. I think they could just get rid of that 10%. No.
Yeah.
No. And it looks like we will be having rain into the foreseeable future. And I've always wondered what that means. Because by its very nature, we can't really see it. But we somehow can foresee the future. And then, but of course, we give ourselves limitations. And then we say the foreseeable future. Now, it's not like a day, a week.
Yeah.
I think for our purposes here, looking at the weather maps and forecasts, I think it's about a week. So the foreseeable future in our magical ability to foresee the future. Okay. Actually, they do use science, and these are educated guesses, shall we say.
Yeah.
And that's how it works. I think that technically you could say it's an educated guess to say that the sun will rise in the east and will, in all probability, set in the west.
Yeah.
Because something might come up to keep it from happening. You got to factor that in, Wink. That's called game theory.
There you go.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Well, we're sending or have sent some destroyer aircraft carrier groups into, they call it the North Korean Sea. I thought that was the Japan Sea. I'm confused, Wink. It's now the North Korean Sea?
Yeah.
When did that happen?
I don't know either.
Boy. I don't know. I'm just getting used to Czechoslovakia not being Czechoslovakia from the 80s or 90s, whatever it was. Now it's the Czech Republic and it's Slovakia.
Right. It's kind of weird, but yeah.
Actually, I'm not just getting used to it, but I thought I'd bring it up for comedic effect.
Yeah, it's been around, 10, 15 years now. So I guess,
more than that, 90s.
Yeah.
It's
been a while.
The Soviet bloc all broke up. So, right after Glasnost.
Yeah.
So, which was...
But you still don't think of it like that as a two countries, but I guess I don't know. It's the way it is.
Well, before the Soviets, they were the Republic of Czech Republic, and Slovakia.
Yeah.
They were two. And the Soviets got mad at their recalcitrants for not, towing a line that was, we're just here for, to tell you that sharing is better than taking.
Yeah.
You share the means of production with us just so we won't take it.
Right.
And that was the Soviet model. It worked pretty good. Seems like that's what's happening right now.
For the most part,
In our own little dynamic. Fancy that. Hey, we're meeting up with Chris Reeves today, so I should get on this because we have a bit. We have a bit to speak about today, in spite of the fact we got. I don't know. Having a two-front war is always a bad idea, right? Korea, Syria, not a good idea. I don't think we want to get in either one, but that's just me. So there's big news there, plus all the other stuff that's going on in the world. And we had to limit what we could into the foreseeable future, as they say. Hey, Wink, a federal court again tells Texas that their voter ID law is racist. Texas keeps going back to court, and the courts keep saying, no, that was right the first time. We'll see what happens now with, the stolen Supreme Court seat in the Republican hands. They were gloating yesterday. God, it just riles me up. Bush, Trump. God, I'm sorry. Bush seems like such a benign little puppy dog compared to what's going on now, but we know that's not true because there was Cheney involved in it. But Trump was out just gloating. Even had Mitch McConnell, thanks, Mitch, for giving me this. Yeah, this was great. And I did this 100 days. And I'm thinking, no, I think it took like about 8 years. Some people say the coup happened quite a while ago, not just recently. Minnesota Republicans accuse House Minority Leader Melissa Hortman of racism for criticizing the all-white male card game that the Republicans like to play during floor speeches. Yep. And Jeff Sessions took the Trump administration's war on science to the next level by discontinuing the commission tasked with raising standards for the use of forensic evidence in criminal proceedings. The kind that's supposed to get rid of the junk science that convicts and kills innocent people of crimes they did not commit, with a science that proves who had committed and whether a crime had been committed. And in Jeff Sessions' mind, obviously, anything that prevents me from convicting somebody that I just feel is guilty can't be on God's side and is therefore wrong. Well, let's just say in this reporter's opinion. As I presaged earlier, for the last half we visit with Chris Reeves, always affectionately known as Tom Servo 433. And we're going to get reports on Ted Cruz rallying the troop yesterday for today's special election, Kansas 04. And, voting sites for the special election in Kansas have been conveniently changed. And Chris will give us a link on how to find out where they are. Koch brothers? I wonder. Georgia also has an important special election coming up next week. And the statistics that Chris Kobach, Kansas Chris, and the Trump administration uses to prove that non-citizens have illegally voted, well, it's based on as few as 14 people. Okay. All that, plus the Connect, Unite, Act, Daily Coast community calendar and more. Always more, and we try to not go too much more here on the After Show with that ever so fine fellow over there on the East Coast with his ever so subtle East Coastal elitism, and his name is Wink, and this guy back over here with my blatant, outrageous, and sometimes people might consider insulting elitism bound by no geographical limitations, and my name is Justice, and I don't mean to be insulting, truly. And we do this 5 days a week, for an hour-ish in the specific, particular, and peculiar tear in the fabric of space-time, because who loves your baby? These aren't insults. Darn it. Actually, the only people that we consider insulting aren't on our side anyway. Okay, let's be clear. Because what some people might consider insulting are simple things like, I don't know, like knowing the actual facts of an occurrence and not the made-up story, and then you try to give them evidence outside of what they might construe as your opinion on it. And of course, any evidence that you may have to corroborate it obviously has been faked. It's all part of the conspiracy, right? And so I like to say they can't be helped. All we can do is try to contain them in some benign and humane way, let them live their lives in ignorance and bliss, and we'll obviously have to take care of things because that's what it means to be a steward of the land. In this reporter's opinion, it's starting to be Easter, right? And I don't know. It's like a neat pagan ritual, rebirth.
Yeah.
New reflections,
spring, which is kind of nice.
New reflections on what it means to be alive and the purpose of that life. Because it's not all just chaos. I mean, we have a predilection to put order to it, Wink. And if I'm going to put order to it, now some people might find it insulting. I don't know. Like the ones like to carry the riot batons and the shields. Maybe they might think that my attitude about how to deal with people. You know what I would have done with Syria? Like, I would have sent in the Peace Corps. I would have drilled water wells and built schools. And at the same time, occupying Assad, ISIS, and everybody else with, I don't know, reruns of Dallas. They love Dallas over there, Wink. They still have Dallas in reruns now. We could have gotten the good work done. They could have been contained in a safe and humane way until we took care of things. But no, don't listen to me. Okay, let's get on with this. I'm sorry. Federal court to Texas. Yep, your voter ID law is racist. And this is by Ian Millhiser. He also says, water is wet. In a brief order handed down last night, Monday evening, a federal district court held that Texas's voter ID law was passed, at least in part, with a discriminatory intent in violation of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Now, I must say, part of the reason that this has come to this conclusion is that Texas Republicans are not like shy about letting us know what their intent is. Right? I mean, actually coming out and saying, when we do this, it means like less of those people are voting. And I'm saying those people because they've used a little bit more colorful language, shall we say. So they've never been shy about their intent. The Fifth Circuit previously held that the Texas law had a greater impact on minority rights than whites, a fact that in and of itself makes the law illegal under the Voting Rights Act. Nevertheless, the district court's Monday order is significant for two reasons. First, as voting rights expert Rick Hassan notes, if the district court's order is upheld on appeal, it would be grounds for throwing out the entire law and not just softening it through an affidavit requirement. Additionally, while a 5-4 Supreme Court gutted a key provision of the Voting Rights Act in 2012, the provision requiring certain states to submit any new election procedures to federal authorities for review before those procedures can take effect, then that's a separate provision of the Voting Rights Act, permits states that engage in intentional voting discrimination to be brought back under this federal supervision. Oh no! Not that. Well, the order in Vesey versus Abbott notes several factors that suggest the law was enacted for the purpose of discriminating against African Americans and Latinos, including the law's disparate impact on those voters and the fact that state lawmakers rushed the state's voter ID law through the legislative process without the usual committee analysis, debate, and substantive consideration of amendments. The court also noted that Texas had become a majority-minority state, with polarized voting patterns allowing the suppression of overwhelmingly Democratic votes of African Americans and Latinos to provide an Anglo-partisan advantage. Now, this is the court speaking here. The state's Republican legislature, in other words, back to Melhiser, by the way, could use race as a proxy for partisan affiliation by passing a law that would disproportionately target African Americans and Latinos. Lawmakers could protect Republican rule. And the Republicans are sitting around going, damn it, yeah, exactly, that's what we're trying to do. What's wrong with that? So Monday's order is good news for voting rights supporters, but it is also good news that it is likely to be short-lived. Although the Fifth Circuit held that Texas law violates the Voting Rights Act, it is also a very conservative court. The lawyers challenging this law have a tough road ahead of themselves before the appeals court. And even if their cases survive contact with the Fifth Circuit, the case is still likely to be reviewed by the newly Gorsuch. We've been Gorsiched, Wink. The Gorsiched Supreme Court. I love that. Prior to the 2016 election, while the Supreme Court was still down to justice, all four of the court's Republicans voted to reinstate North Carolina's omnibus voter suppression law, despite a federal appeals court's determination that the law was intentionally designed to increase its impact on black voters and minimize its impact on white voters. With Trump's nominee now occupying the court's vacant seat, it is likely that there are now 5 votes to permit racially motivated voter suppression to move forward. Okay. You never know. Maybe Roberts will now be wondering, wait a second. Someone's trying to, usurp my dominion here.
Yeah.
You never know.
Right.
I'm not counting on it because I also expect Roberts to decide that there is no racism involved anywhere in America anymore.
Right.
And so we don't even need any of this other review on this other provision of the Voting Rights Act.
Exactly.
Who needs it? And all you have to do is look around and see there's no racism anywhere. Yikes. At the same time, we have like American Carnage. It's hard for me to reconcile these two visions. You know, one of like the shining city on a hill where everybody's beaming beatific visages to each other and they're all happy in a Rockwell painting. And the other part where it's like Guernica. Yikes. Which is it? Well, in Trump's mind, I guess it's both and all. This next article is by Aaron Rupert out of Think Progress. On April 4th, America's first Somali legislator, Representative Ilhan Omar, Democrat, made a speech on the House floor about the connection between today's Black Lives Matter activists and civil rights icons like Martin Luther King Jr. She was speaking out in opposition to a Republican bill that would increase penalties for protesters if they block highways, a tactic that has been used in Minnesota in response to the deaths of Jamar Clark and Philando Castile at the hands of cops. But many Republicans weren't around to hear what Omar and other Minnesota legislators of color, like Representative Susan Allen, also a Democrat, had to say. Instead of being on the floor, they were relaxing in a separate room. House Minority Leader Melissa Hortman wasn't happy about it, so she made a call of the House to get the members back to the floor. Okay. I hate to break up the 100% white male card game in the retiring room, but I think this is an important debate, Hortman said. Her remark apparently cut Republicans close to the bone. Representative Bob Detmer said, "I'm a white male. I respect everybody, but I really believe that the comments made by the minority leader are really not important." Yeah, nothing shows respect to your colleagues than like playing a card game, probably with big old stogies. And I also wouldn't be surprised that they're dressing up in like negligees and stockings and garters too. You know, Giuliani loved doing that.
Yeah.
Playing poker and drag, smoking big old cigars. Detmer asked Hortman to apologize, but that wasn't happening. "I have no intention of apologizing," she said, adding that she's really tired of watching women of color in particular being ignored. "So I'm not sorry," she continued. House Republican Majority Leader Joyce Pepin called Hortman's claim racist. And Republicans continued to play the race card in the days that followed. The longest tenured Republican in the House, Representative Greg Davids, told the Rochester Post-Bulletin that he was, quote, greatly offended by Hortman's racist statement about white males. We're a put-upon group. Everybody hates us. I sit at a soda fountain counter and they won't serve me anymore. Because there aren't any soda fountain counters anymore, you idiot. They closed down. The last Montgomery Ward's quite a while, buddy. Sorry. I believe her comments have created a very hostile working environment. Notice how they love to use the stuff that actually, has meaning, and then to delegitimize it because somehow it applies to them now. You called me a white male. That's racist. Oh. At the same time, they're marching, goose-stepping under a banner of, white heritage. Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay, well, they still came back out, and let's see, they Republicans actually convened together to write a letter of censure for her, and she responded with a forward statement. "I am still not sorry," or "I'm still not sorry." Okay. Good for her.
Yeah.
Well, the back and forth generated by Hortman's comments overshadow the fact that the anti-protesting measure was approved as part of a public safety package, and the Democratic governor expressed concern about the measure, but he hasn't decided quite yet, but he did state that, he's got to draw a line when it comes to, stopping traffic on freeways. So much for marching over the Selma Bridge, huh?
Indeed.
I'm just saying it's blocking traffic, right? Then they can say, well, you can get a permit to march across the Selma Bridge. And then you go to get a permit and they won't give it to you. Oh, thanks. And generally, there's no permits involved in being able to get on a freeway anyway. Maybe it's not a good idea to get on the freeway. But, they stop you from even going on the overpasses of the freeway to hold your signs. Because it might disrupt people's traffic. They might pay attention to some signage instead of the stuff that tells you to buy condoms before you get to the poker bar up ahead. Do I sound cynical? Okay. War on science. Let me just say also, Wink, and we know this, but authoritarian regimes always find the arts and science to be threats to their authority. And they always get rid of them. So this is not surprising to me. But will it stop if we ever get this fellow out? Before his term's up. These forces have been in movement for a considerable time before we came to this potency, shall we say. Oh, I apologize. I need to tell you that this is by Kara Lerner, also out of Think Progress. Attorney General Jeff Sessions said Monday the Justice Department will no longer partner with an independent group of experts that has been working to improve the accuracy of forensic science. In a public statement first reported by the Washington Post, Sessions announced he would not renew the National Commission on Forensic Science, a group of scientists, judges, prosecutors, defense attorneys, and other experts tasked, this is why, by that black guy in 2013 with raising standards for the use of forensic evidence in criminal proceedings. And Sessions said, wait a second. This is meant to let black people off that we've been trying really hard with hardly any kind of ability to incarcerate for long periods of time to perpetuate the slave state. And this guy's trying to use science to prevent that from happening. If we can't keep a certain amount of people in prison unable to vote, we don't get voted back in. Everybody knows that. Why do you think we started this whole prison industrial complex? I'm sorry. That character was in this reporter's opinion. The commission, which has been critical in recommending forensic standards, guidance, and policies to the DOJ, is set to expire on April 23rd, and Sessions said yesterday that the roles will instead shift internally to a still unnamed senior forensic advisor and an internal department crime task force. Yikes. That sounds militarized to me. The ability of prompt and accurate forensic science analysis to our law enforcement officers and prosecutors is critical to the integrity and law enforcement, reducing violent crime, and increasing public safety, Sessions said in a statement. When they write it out, you don't really get the flavor of his inflection. You really don't. As we decide how to move forward, we bear in mind that the department is just one piece of the larger criminal justice system, and that the vast majority of forensic science is practiced by state and local forensic laboratories and is used by state and local prosecutors, so we shouldn't get into any kind of standards. We should have one set of standards in the state because they decide that's how they want to do it, and even sometimes down to the county and city level. We need to bring back the science that allows us to prove that she's a witch or not. You dump her in the middle of the lake, and if she floats, well, obviously she's a witch, and if she sinks and drowns, well, she wasn't a witch, and we'll give her a nice burial, and it'll be a nice Christian burial at that. Aren't we nice? Wink, save me. At least 6 leading scientists wrote in a letter Thursday that the commission should be renewed for another 2-year term because, quote, for too long, decisions regarding forensic science have been made without the input of the research science community, end quote. And, well, it's not just the only area in which the Trump administration is making decisions about science without consulting scientists. The EPA, Energy Department, NASA, and National Institutes of Health has picked to lead the EPA, Scott Pruitt, obviously as a fervent denier of climate change, and other things too. All right, let's get to our Jim Hightower break. We'll come back, go through the Connect, Unite, Act Daily Codes community calendar, and then, hey, there's some special elections and all the attendant news about that with Chris Reeves. So you are listening to the After Show on Netroots Radio with Lincoln Justice, and we will be right back.
Poor John Stumpf. The preening, silver-haired CEO of Wells Fargo sat self-assuredly atop the pecking order of the financial establishment, and he was hailed as a paragon of big banker virtue until he suddenly fell off his lofty perch. It turns out that being a paragon of big banker virtue is not at all the same as being a virtuous human being. Banker elites don't get paid the big bucks by doing what's right, but by doing what's most profitable. And that means cutting corners on ethics, common decency, and the golden rule. Stumpf didn't just cut corners, he crashed through them, devising a business plan that effectively encouraged Wells Fargo branches to steal from millions of their poorest and most easily deceived customers. The courtly chief executive coldly fostered a high-pressure sales culture, pushing elderly pensioners, non-English-speaking workers, and other vulnerable depositors into accounts they didn't understand or need, extracting high fees for the bank. One shameful and illegal profit-boosting ploy was having bank employees secretly set up fake high-fee accounts for some 2 million customers without their knowledge, much less their consent. Running such rackets for more than a decade, Wells Fargo prospered, and the chief amassed a fabulous personal fortune. Then, as the scandal went public last year, the paragon of virtue tried to save himself by firing 5,300 lower-level employees. But it wasn't enough. Stumpf was shoved out and forced to surrender $41 million in stock awards he had stashed away. This is Jim Hightower saying, but don't weep for poor John. He grabbed $83 million in stock payments on his way out last year, and he still holds another $147 million in Wells Fargo stock. It's said that virtue is its own reward, but big banker virtue is rewarded in cash.
Need an antidote to the progressive blues? Want some good news about how grassroots folks are rebelling against the corporate powers and winning? Well, here's an easy-to-swallow pill for you, the Hightower Lowdown. Hightower's monthly newsletter will give you the lowdown, even as it lifts you up. It's 4 pages a month, jam-packed with facts you can use, actions you can take, and Jim's own Texas humor, all for only $15 a year. To become a lowdowner, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
Okay, we're back.
All right. That's right. You're listening to the After Show on Netroots Radio with Wink and Justice. Justice here along the banks of the Rogue River, on the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon. Wink is in upstate New York 21 on the East Coast. Our crew are the ethereal creatures who reside in the cloud whose advanced intergalactic technical abilities allow Netroots Radio, and thus by extension the after show to span the globe, the solar system, out past the York cloud, out past the bridge of stars to connect those two circling universe or galaxies that was just picked up by one of the great deep space telescopes that we have floating around. And I would like to say beyond that too. Because if you think it can be true. It can be. Whether it's really true or not is another matter for another show. Yeah. Hey, we'll be connecting with Chris while we're in progress. He's it being election day in Kansas. He's a little bit busy right now, but we'll get on with it here. And today's Connect, Unite, Act Daily Coast Community Calendar is facilitated by Eric Lewis, the great cartoonist. Oh, I should mention Jen Sorensen, cartoonist here at for Daily Coast, was also up for a Pulitzer. Isn't that nice? Just saying. Great community, and they all hang out together. And Eric Lewis's lead-in today has to do with Passover, and he was tasked with delivering, the homily, the speech for the Seder, and he essentially referenced Reverend Niemöller. First they came for, the blacksmiths, and I wasn't a blacksmith. Then they came for, the poets. I wasn't a poet. Then they came for the Catholics. I wasn't a Catholic. Then they came for the Jews. And by the time they came for me, there was no one left, right? And so for his task, his mother had tasked him to do this. And so then he was thinking, how can I do, the speech for the Seder and the Connect, Unite, Act Daily Coast Community Diary lead-in on Tuesday. And so he decided to double it up, and it worked really good. So I would suggest going there, because there's important links anyway for all the events that are forthcoming, which are new groups forming. Wisconsin Cossacks are forming their group, and you would want to cosmail Chris the Colladem if you're in Wisconsin and would like to be part of Wisconsin Co's. Navajo, of course, maintains the event list, so if you have any information about events that you would like to publicize, do cosmail her. And when it's listed, we read it off. Okay. New York City Cossacks will be meeting up on Sunday, April 23rd, because Navajo will be in... Oh,
Chris is currently unavailable.
Hi,
Please
Chris,
leave a
you're
message.
Not here yet. That was rather startling.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're going to meet April 23rd at Spitzer's Corner, 101 Rivington Street in the Ludlow District at high noon. So cosmail Navajo to RSVP for that, because her work never ends. New England Cossacks have their spring 2017 Cheers and Jeers Cossack meetup Saturday, April 29th at noon at Flatbread Pizza in Portland, Maine. Cosmail NHawks 42 to RSVP for a seat. Let's see here. The Walk of Action precedes the People's Climate March on April 29th. And there's a diary by Boatsy. Sign up for the historic People's Climate March in Washington, D.C., or for a sister march near you. Connect, Unite, Act exists to connect readers of Daily Coast in real life for action. And so there's going to be various marches around the country. And why don't I just start reading down the list until we can connect with Chris here. People's Climate Movement of Bay Area will be marching April 29th at 11 a.m. from the Lake Merritt Amphitheater on Lake Merritt Boulevard in Oakland. RSVPs for Oakland go to Boatsy. People's Climate Movement Sister March in San Jose at 10 a.m. on April 29th at San Jose City Hall in San Jose. People's Climate Mobilization in Sacramento will have their march at 11 a.m. At the Capitol Building.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll be with you just 1 second here.
And good morning.
All right. 1 second. I'll just finish this up real.
Yeah, we're just going through
quick.
the calendar.
And there are links for the sister marches in the Connect Unite Act Daily Co's community diary, and also Thinking Fella and Ojibwa have been organizing the Epic Glacier National Park.
Oh, Chris, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I got to adjust this if I get him, maybe. Okay, there we go. Oh, man. Or not. Oh, yeah, there we go. Okay. Beautiful. Okay. Well, I guess we got to do this first.
What happened?
Did
I get cut off? Hello.
Yeah, there you go.
Am I here?
Yeah, you're here. You are here. You're live.
Okay. Is Chris off? Let me put this up here. Okay.
It
looks like Chris. Okay. Yeah, it looks like we have two host lines opened up, but maybe that's how it usually goes. Okay, the other one hung up. Okay. Let me go back here. And so today, when we do finally connect with Chris, I heard Wink a little bit of when we got disconnected, it sounded like he didn't think we were connected. So I don't know if he could hear us.
Yeah, I could hear him, but I don't know. He might not be able to hear us.
Yeah.
No, I can't find him. He must be at the top here. That's what it is. Okay.
Okay. All right. Sorry for the delay, folks, and the little dead air there. We're just, doing production while doing the show at the same time.
Yeah.
And
Sorry, you guys dropped me.
Oh, right. Okay. Well,
we go.
Skype dropped you. And then by extension, we blame it on Putin. So
yeah, pretty much.
Or if we don't blame it on Putin, if it has to do with an ISP, we call that an act of God.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, you have a busy day, and pretty much our discussions, I like to keep them free form for the most part, and because of upcoming news or whatnot. But you did have a little rally, and when I say little, it was really small. That Ted Cruz came to rally a few people in I guess near an airport where he could barely be heard. What's up with that? What's the planning on that?
Yeah, well, what happens when Republicans last minute decide they need to pay attention? So we have a race that is happening today. Polls are open, so if anybody's listening to this and they're ready to go in Kansas CD04. Which is Wichita proper, and there is a international airport there. It is our largest city, and Ted Cruz held a little rally of sorts nearby there. I can't remember if it was that airport or the home business one, but either way, there were a very small crowd. People anticipate about 150 or so in attendance, of which a huge that were media, press, and others. So the number of locals who were actually there is hard to even know. Someone joked, hey, there may be 50 actual voters here in an attempt to prop up the Estes campaign. Now, right now, the race in Sedgwick County is, or I shouldn't say Sedgwick County, in District 4, of which Sedgwick County is the largest, is, of course, occupying a lot of national attention, and it's good. I first wrote about this, I don't know, 2 months ago, and people weren't paying very much attention then. And all of a sudden we get into the last week, and now I'm glad to see people paying attention. But this is a district that is really tough ground for Democrats.
Right.
It's 4 congressional districts, 2 of which have been held by Democrats recently enough. Let's say that District 3 and District 2. It has been a long time since District 4 had a Democrat, since 1994. It's the home of Koch Industries. It is the second most conservative district in our state, and it is easily the most directly influenced by Koch Industries, considering it is the home of their national headquarters. So to say this is an uphill climb for a Democrat is an unbelievable understatement. I mean, it's this is a district that if somebody would have told me 5 months ago what's the goal in this district, I would have openly said, in fact, I told the campaign this, I said, look, 38% is a pretty good showing here.
Right.
Democrats there typically get around 32, 33%. And then occasionally an independent jumps into the race and they can pick up some more. You know, between the independent and the Democrat in the fall, you manage to get, right around there, 36 or so.
Now, there's been some
you get 38 in a special election.
There's been obvious criticism that, in this race particular, that the National Party wasn't kicking any money in, but they never have. And of course, there are systemic reasons why the National Party wouldn't, like the DCCC would be involved in congressional races, but they wouldn't necessarily be involved in Senate. That would be the DS or the DCSC. And the National Party usually wants
Senate,
right. So then the National Party also tends to keep it up with the state parties. Now, some in the national media looking at this race have put the blame, and I hate recriminations before the election is even over, but with 38%, showing 38%, we would consider that to be quite a showing. But the national press is saying, well, the Kansas party or the state party is to blame. And what would you say to that? I mean, is there
okay? So it's election day. I'll talk kind of frank about this.
Crazy. Okay.
Well, so the campaign in the 4th district was one where, at the beginning, James Thompson, who's a good guy, is running a campaign where he is largely a political unknown, so to speak. I mean, this is someone who, the running example is he's never been to a Democratic meeting in the community. He's never run for office for anything before. He's an unknown. And so that was a big hitch with a lot of the major donors in the beginning, because their basic attitude was, don't know this guy.
Right.
And there were a lot of donors who did kick in. I'm one of them who kicked in pretty significantly. And the state party did as well. The state party put up money for the first round of polling data, and they put up money for canvassers, and they put up money for a digital ad campaign and a few other things. But state parties around the country generally do not have a lot of money. There are a lot of state parties that don't even have 20 grand total. And so there was a call to a meeting of the campaign wanted another 20,000. And as somebody on the executive committee, I can tell you, we sat in that meeting and we had officers lay out the budget. And we basically said, okay, well, if we do this, we have to cut something else. Well, the other stuff you're cutting are voter protection and voter registration services, and because there's just not the money. And it came down to, well, how do we justify that later? And I'll be blunt, at the point that we were asked that, the data that we had, that the national had, that everyone had, said, their top number is, it's hard for a Democrat to get over 38. And even if we thought, hey, they could run and win, which we do, we think that they can. We think this is a good race. It's still one of those kind of things where you say, how do you later say to other people, we spent all this money in one congressional race and now we don't have it anywhere else? It's also complicated since we know we already have people who are committed to run for governor in 2018. And we're already doing candidate training programs, and we've done a couple in the state. And you start to say, okay, which one of those gets cut? Which congressional district in the state loses money? And then, of course, in the big committee, you get people from those other congressional districts. And And from those other campaigns were like, wait a second, this is kind of unfair that we're going to do this for one when we don't have the resources. That having been said,
I was going to mention, but the National Party has kicked in some help on phone banking and election day help, right? Am I correct in that? And that's helpful.
Yeah, more than that. Okay, here's the thing. People are looking at this as though the National Party came in, and this is the only thing that they've ever done. National Party did nothing else. They just, last minute, this is it.
Right.
That's also really not fair in a lot of ways to the National Party. The National Party, I wish, had done more, but one of the things that they did do really early, at the urging of our state chair and myself and a few others, was they had ASDC, which is the Association of Democratic Chairs, so that's the state chairs all over the country, urged their communities to not only phone bank, but to give money. And so starting about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we had people calling into Kansas from Wyoming, Mississippi, New Mexico, Nevada, California, who were making calls into Kansas at the urging of their state party chairs, who received the please do this from the National Party. Now, is that the same as the National Party sending truckloads of money? No, but also I get the point where there was a lot of concern with the National Party of if they turned this race into a federal race, although this is a federal race, if they turn this into a race of, this is about national parties, that might not necessarily work out so well for the Democrat in that district, because Trump won that district by 30 plus points.
Now,
this is a race that go ahead.
I've also heard or read some reports that with Coke money, some last minute hit ads that are very onerous. And the only way to counter that, I suppose, is with a massive phone banking effort. And then you have Trump putting in robocalls as well. Now, but will, the people who are already predisposed, for the Estes, are these hit pieces going to be effective, or can they be allayed? Do people, of course, I looked at them.
Well,
this is so over the top. It's like the Onion, but they fry in some markets.
Well, one of the things I'm going to talk about in nuts and bolts later, and it depends largely on how this works out. So they ran a couple pieces there that were really, anti-choice. Now, the Kansas 4th District, remember what I said, it's one of the two most conservative districts in the state, but it has a real divide between conservatives and liberal and the Democrats, not just because, there's a divide in the country, but because Wichita is ground zero for the anti-choice, pro-choice voters. You're talking about a city where George Tiller got shot and killed a few years ago. And as a result, it has created a Democratic base that is zealously pro-choice and a conservative base that is zealously anti-choice. And those two factions, that's not just a bright line issue there. It is a huge, overwhelming issue there. Enough so that we have several Democrats elected within the 4th Congressional District who are, not fervently anti-choice, but let's just say that they are not pro-choice Democrats, and that's who runs there. And so you've got that mix, in the state house there, and then you've got this fight. Well, what has happened is that the Republicans ran this pretty onerous ad that basically takes the congressional candidate out of context and makes it seem as though he's endorsing, late-term abortion and all of this kind of stuff.
Sounded to me like it was the old European thing of we're going to take your kids and eat them. That's what.
Yeah, pretty much. It was just all the horribleness, infanticide, the whole thing. I mean, they might as
Exactly.
well accuse him, of
Let's have a
baby
pogrom in the
snatching.
process. To me, it was, black humor, laughing, but then I thought this is right in the area that Tiller was murdered, and some people may take this seriously.
Now, the thing about that is going to be, and this is what's going to get interesting, is that the Republicans didn't actually put very much money behind that ad.
Right.
They put $60,000, which is, we're talking on Daily Kos and stuff about Republicans' last-minute panic. $60,000 isn't a lot. But they know that it may be effective because what they're hoping is that it drives out their people. But also, and we're going to find out whether or not this works or not. And I have my own feelings on this, but we've now turned into a debate where several Democrats there, who are, of course, very actively pro-choice, and that's their big issue, and they know that that's an issue that will resonate with people like me and you and other progressives in the district, have went to TV and said, hey, this is unfair, this is all BS, you need to retract this ad, et cetera, et cetera. But the problem that has created is now the TV news are showing Estes ad for free. So now it's not just the $67,000 ad time he gets. It's that the local news shows the ad and says, upcoming report on the 6 o'clock news, this controversial ad, whatever. And then they show the ad and then they give the rebuttal. Well, is that giving the ad more eyeballs to influence more Republicans? Don't know yet. But, we're going to find out today. I will tell you, it's one of the concerns that some of us have is that sometimes you're better off leaving. Sleeping dogs lie. I would have been pretty tempted to just say, meh, how many people are going to see this ad? I'm going to pretend it's not even there. And just moved on.
Okay.
But, we are where we are, and we'll see what happens next.
Well, to me, it shows desperation on the other side's part to put out such a poorly produced hit piece. I don't care where the money's coming from. We have our suspicions. Right. But the other sign of desperation, and I know this was put into effect earlier, but changing up voting sites. And here's an election, and people don't, maybe going to their regular place. Now, how long ago was that decided on? Is that a more recent development to change up the voting sites for today?
Well, so here's what happened. By law, the election has to happen within a time frame after the governor announces it. Well, because of when he announced, it put the election the Tuesday after Palm Sunday. So the normal locations in Wichita and in many communities are churches, church basements and whatever. Well, you can't do that in high week in Lent. They're not going to let that happen. And so, and we kind of knew that from the beginning. So all these churches are off limits to have any event in them because they're all in the middle of, redecorating their churches and getting everything ready for Easter and, all of that. And so that changed, it scrambled up a whole lot of polling places. Now that's been known for about 2 months, but how much is that going to impact voter turnout? We don't know.
Now you do have a
Democrat
link. I just wanted to mention, because I feel it's fairly important. There is a link at your diary that I have linked to on my show notes for the new polling places. Yep. And I don't know if that's an easy one to say, but if people are interested, they can either go to the diary or we'll let you know where that is. So getting the word out, and I suppose that's where the National Party helping in whatever way they can of the phone banking, or at least, other state parties getting the word out. I suppose that's where it becomes helpful too. So,
and the National Party phone banking is not a robocall; it's a live phone call. So,
now we only got a minute or so left, but let's talk about Ossoff's special election coming up next week. That seems to be getting a lot more press than the Kansas one, but fairly important. And I was wondering if you had any inside baseball on that election.
Ossoff has a benefit that none of the other special elections have, and that is that the Republican field is fractured into a large number. And so it's Ossoff running against the field. Now, in the first round, if he gets to 50%, it's over. If he doesn't, but he's one of the top two candidates, which at this point he's guaranteed he will be, we move on to a second round. That having been said,
as of today, he's at 44.
It's a whole lot easier for him to. Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, as of today, he's almost 45%.
Right. It's a whole lot easier for him to win this if he wins it outright in the first round next week. Because it doesn't give Republicans time to coalesce around any of the other candidates. And right now, the other candidates are just beating themselves up, so they're all down in the teens. And so it gives him an opportunity to, cross that threshold, get to 50+1, and win this next Tuesday. And that would be a huge win.
Now, generally, my understanding of Southern politics is that literally the good old boy system is very entrenched. And so I suppose one of the strategies would be to try to pick off some of the lower percentaged Republicans and try to get those percentage points. Is that a strategy you see as workable, or keep as many Republicans in the field as possible?
Yeah, it's they're going to have to do that, and Ossoff has an advantage in the sense that this thing in Syria plays into his background.
Right. Because once again, this isn't a fellow that just came, quote, out of nowhere either. I mean, he was a top aide for some well-respected politicians and done some big-time work. And I consider that to be another advantage. And he does have some personal funds and a pretty good fundraising, do we call it a machine? But he's been able to garner some pretty astounding funds for the Georgia race. So I guess this puts the fear. Do you see much more mobilization by the Republicans in that race in the week ahead? Oh,
I think Republicans are going to try and do what they're going to do, but their problem is again, like I said, they're divided really between three camps, and so they're spending more time, or almost as much time, fighting as each other as they are Ossoff, and that's an opportunity for us if we can capitalize on it in the first round.
Right.
So we're going to have to next week really work to get him to 50+1.
Right. Okay, well, we'll speak with you next week and see how that shakes out. Of course, people will be at the polls while we speak, but it makes it even more exciting. Thanks for today, Chris.
Okay, no problem. Thanks.
All right, folks. Well, we better bug out of here. We got, of course, Hartman coming up about 6 minutes after the hour. In the interim, we'll be playing Cafe Americain's L'Amour. A little bit of trip hop. Why not? And stay tuned for the rest of the day to some great content as it comes up. Randy Rhodes, of course, at 1 p.m. on the West Coast. That's 4 p.m. on the East. And I just mentioned that by way of reminding you to stay tuned to Netroots Radio 24/7, 365. And why? Because who loves you, baby? Okay, wink. I will see you on the other side.
All right.